Good morning and welcome. It is the 8th day of August 2021. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OGGM, and it is time for day 8 of RPG A Day 2021. Every day for the month of August, we are looking at these prompts posted up by the people of RPG A Day, Autocratic, and coming up with things that are related to the RPG hobby based upon the prompts. And today's prompt is stream. Thus, this picture of this lovely woodland stream. Now, that's kind of an open-ended conversation to talk about streaming, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, as a streamer, a YouTube streamer, as somebody who has been influenced by other streamers to pursue this hobby slash idea slash potential source of additional revenue, we have to talk about streaming. And of course, we can't really talk about streaming in our hobby without at least mentioning Critical Role. Although they haven't really done anything newsworthy or complaint-worthy since Mighty 9 ended. They did announce the $320 version of their Guide to Tal'Dorei game. And we can expect from hints and things and just the influence that idea has had on the industry and the digital media industry, of what the future might hold for the various aspects of our hobby, especially in relations to, will there be a 6th edition to mark the 50th anniversary or a 5.5 reprint, and what future influence, if any, Critical Role is going to have. Now, this comes off of course, what Jeremy Crawford said earlier this month, last month actually, about how the content of Wizards of the Coast product is going to change to be in smaller chunks so that you could run a whole section in about anywhere from 90 minutes to 3 hours, because they feel that a lot more stuff is going to be streamed, and the best format for the product is to make it streaming compatible. So anything printed is going to be in this new sort of more 3-hour block per chunk idea, so that it could be streamed in anywhere between 90 minutes and 3 hours. The general idea being that the future of the hobby is more or less Twitch/YouTube, which it does appear to be. I mean, things could change, but we are going into Delta variant now, which means the world might shut down again, which means, once again, the possibility of people gathering in public places like a park or a library or a friendly local game store, that's Cess Games Anime here in Ventura, are diminished. We had 1 month to address the possibility of getting people back in the store, but now we're worried about Delta. And how is that going to affect us? And does that mean we're going to have to be, trapped in our houses again for another year? Then if that means we're going to have to be trapped in our houses for another year, then we might as well do more online. And if there's more online, then we have to look to sort of the pinnacle of the online streaming, Critical Role. What have they done in the past? What, if anything, are they going to do in the future? What are the choices they are going to make? And how is that going to affect the digital aspect of the hobby? Because, like it or not, we can't deny the fact that Critical Role is sort of the anchor right now for the choices that are affecting the hobby, at least in relation to Dungeons and Dragons. Now, Critical Role's actions don't really have any effect on the other aspects of the hobby, like other games, other than except of course that the more that they talk about Dungeons and Dragons and the more they do Dungeons and Dragons, the more likely somebody looking to game first and foremost is going to say, well, I want to play because I saw Critical Role. Now, caveat, I haven't actually heard Critical Role come up in a gaming related conversation anywhere I've been in a while now, almost a year. Of course, I haven't really been out around other gamers in a year, but usually the only time Critical Role comes up is if I post a vlog about it and then people attack me because my opinion about Critical Role is sometimes less than favorable. But other than that, it hasn't really come up with any gaming related conversations. So that may or may not mean anything. I mean, we have to take into account where I live and how often I interact with gamers in the past year. So it could be nothing. But yeah, we have a new season of Stranger Things coming up, and we assume that once this little mini series they're doing, we will see a Critical Role season 3 of some sort. And how will that affect the future of the hobby? Because more and more people are streaming their hobby and doing the hobby online. In fact, I just got a text from somebody who I haven't heard from in like 20 years wanting to know if I was interested in joining an online D&D game. And I'm like, are we talking D&D or are we talking 5th edition? Because they're two different things. And, is that something that we're going to stream? Because everybody, of course, post Critical Role wants to jump on that Critical Role bandwagon and try and get at least a measure of the same success. And we have to assume that once Critical Role starts a 3rd season and whatever influences they're going to have on the hobby, at least in regards to bringing people to the hobby and making the hobby money, will cascade into, again, maybe another round of people coming and saying, I want to play because I saw Critical Role, or I want to play because I saw them playing on Stranger Things. And this idea that Dungeons & Dragons is trying to change its perception to be a family-friendly game night kind of game, and that can be done in 2 or 3 hours. So it can be streamed, or it can be built around more of a family game night idea where you play 2-3 hours, the same amount of time you might play, a good game of Risk, and then you move on, as opposed to, the 6, 8, 9, 24-hour games of old. And obviously it's easier to stream a 90-minute content or 2-hour, 3-hour content than it is a larger content that could take up to 6 hours or longer. So, stream. Yeah. How is the idea of the streaming services going to affect? We see a lot more video digital tool sets being designed for the hobby. I mean, we started with 1, and then there was 3, and then there was 8. Now there's I don't know, I've lost count, but there's a lot more than I ever thought there was going to be. Almost every week I see another at least ad for one, or hear about one I'd never heard about before. Like just the other day I heard about one called Bugbear Radio, which is a digital streaming service for gaming tools. I was like, what? Then I heard that they were going to be doing a voxel-based Minecraft style one, and they were going to be, somebody else was trying to do a Diablo-esque video tool. So when you were playing, your game could look like you were playing on a Diablo type top-down AARPG setting. So yeah, everybody is obviously trying to capitalize on the door that Critical Role opened. I think that's a crane in the end of the picture there. Before that door closes. And will that door close? Again, it comes down to what are they going to do next? We can hypothesize, that's a word, right? Hypothesize of what Critical Role might do next based upon what we've seen them do in the past and the choices they've made recently, like opening up their own publishing company. What does that mean? And then we can also look at things like D&D Beyond saying we're not going to do Unearthed Arcana anymore because we want to invest that time, energy, and money in making our product better, faster, and more adaptable to the new changes that are coming down the line to the D&D hobby. Like the product being now designed in such a way that it can be run in 90 minutes to 3 hours, and then be designed in such a way that it is more streaming compatible, if that's a word. We can't deny the video streaming. Not a fad anymore. The video streaming idea has changed the way we game. COVID, of course, helped a huge amount. And if we have to go into another lockdown, it will help further. It's a lot easier to do it online than it is to meet in person. It's a lot, in some ways, better to do it online. It's also a lot, in some ways, worse to do it online. Online digital media streaming makes it easier. It also makes it harder. It's a lot of, it's just a change in the evolution of the hobby. It could be a bad change in some ways. It could be a good change in some ways, but it's definitely a change. And the next step in the evolution of the hobby is based around ideas like Wizards of the Coast deciding we're going to break our product up and so it's easier to stream, and whatever Critical Role is going to do next. If they go away, that changes things. If they do another season, that changes things. If they remain loyal to Wizards of the Coast, that changes things. If they decide to break off from Wizards of the Coast and become a completely independent publishing company and not do any more D&D compatible stuff, that changes everything. It's hard to predict what the long-term effects 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road are going to be. I mean, are we going to be all just completely online VR D&D, or will there be a grassroots movement to return to people just getting together to play D&D, even if the image of D&D has changed to that of being a party game, which is fine if it does. Everything that's come out of streaming is both good for the hobby and bad for the hobby. Like any tool, it's not what the streaming does, it's how the streaming is used. If it's used in a positive way to help the community and grow the community, it's a good thing. If it's used in a negative way to harm the community, it's a bad thing. If it's used to get me more subs, it's a great thing. So if you haven't subbed yet, please sub. Help me hit 1,000 subs before the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming. I hope you appreciate this content and this ramblings of my addled brain. If you do, let me know. Till next time, stay warm, stay dry, stay safe, stay sane, stay in school, stay healthy, and stay off my land.